Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Monday, February 3rd. Little evening edition of the show for y'all. We've gotten some news out of, Super Bowl week, Radio Row, rumors, reports. There's a lot of chatter, right? And you've seen a lot of reports this evening about the Jaguars general manager search. They fired Trent Baalke, what seems like a while ago. It's been, a week and a half, something like that. So Jaguars, they now have their head coach in Liam Cohen. They have their executive vice president and Tony Baselli that they announced today. And we now have news of 5 different general manager interview requests that the Jaguars have put out there. They've kind of started getting this search together, and they want to get this done by the end of the month. I would say there's a chance it's done well before that, considering they've already got 5 interview requests out there. These processes can move fairly quickly. We've seen that, right? So you talk about the guys that they have actually interviewed or requested to interview. There's 5 names here, as I mentioned, and you've got Trey Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals. You've got Chad Alexander of the Los Angeles Chargers, Ian Cunningham of the Chicago Bears, Mike Greenberg of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you've got Brandon Brown from the New York Giants. So we're going to just briefly hit on all these guys, talk about them real quick, and kind of talk about their backgrounds, where they come from. We're going to do a lot more digging and figuring out more about what makes these guys tick and what they're really trying to bring. The Jaguars, they've talked about it quite a bit. This new regime, it's going to be all about alignment. It's going to be all about sharing the same vision, having the alignment throughout the football leadership unit, which is going to be Tony Baselli, Liam Cohen, and the new GM, whoever that may be. So we can start with Brandon Brown first. He is a young guy, only a couple years older than me, in his mid-30s. Currently the assistant general manager of the New York Giants, has served that role since 2022. Prior to that, was a Philadelphia Eagles scout, and in 2021 their director of player personnel, but was a director of scouting there, director of pro scouting from 2017 to 2020. And obviously Philly has had a lot of success. Then you go back before that, Indianapolis Colts 2015 to 2016 as a scouting assistant and then an advanced scout. Before that, he was at Boston College for a couple years as a recruiting specialist and then assistant director of player personnel. You've seen a lot of Boston College tie-ins with this Jaguars coaching staff. And so he's definitely going to have some familiarity with some of the guys, especially on the defensive side. New York Jets pro personnel intern in 2012. That was his first job in the NFL. So the one thing that gives you pause here potentially is what the Giants have done over the last few years. And obviously, as the assistant general manager, he doesn't get to make the final decision on a lot of these things, right? Or on any of these things. But I think that he's definitely a really smart guy, well-spoken, thoughtful. I know you can tell that when you listen to him talk about football, when you listen to him talk about the Saquon Barkley situation. I don't know what he wanted to do. And look, even if the Giants had Saquon Barkley wasn't producing in New York the way he produced with Philly. They don't have the offensive line infrastructure. They don't have the receivers. I mean, there's just a lot that goes into that decision, and I do think they should have kept Saquon Barkley. I think they should have kept Xavier McKinney. They should not have prioritized signing Daniel Jones to an extension, obviously. And so there's been some mistakes made with the New York Giants. Is Brandon Brown responsible for that? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what his opinions were on those types of deals. So that's going to be something that you have to vet, that you have to figure out. But his, 5 years in Philadelphia, obviously huge. I think being with the Colts during the time he was there was a big deal as well. So somebody who's really smart. He went to law school as well. So Brandon Brown, he is one of the names you consistently hear that draws interest from around the league. Somebody that folks feel is an up and coming potential general manager candidate. Personally, not the highest on my list, but again, this list can be kind of changing as we dig in more and more about and learn more about these guys. The next guy we're going to look at here is Mike Greenberg, the assistant general manager for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously has familiarity with Liam Cohen from the 2024 campaign, where Liam Cohen was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator. Mike Greenberg has been with the Buccaneers for 15 seasons. Second season in 2024 as the assistant general manager. So he's more on the business side of the football operations, more on the cap side. He's kind of been their cap expert over there. So that's not to say that he has not gotten heavily involved with scouting. The Buccaneers list his roles as overseeing budgeting for operations, coaching, scouting, video, athletic training, equipment, groundskeeping, strength and conditioning, and player development departments. So again, that is the budgeting. That is the business side of things. But somebody who obviously is garnering some attention here with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Spytek went over to the Las Vegas Raiders, who was also one of the guys that was one of the top executives in Tampa. They've done a tremendous job building a great infrastructure for football, in Tampa. They were able to obviously have get Tom Brady there. But after that, I mean, they have just consistently had hit after hit after hit after hit in the draft. And I know Mike Greenberg, again, is more on the business side of that, but he's been around. He's seen what it takes from a general manager like Jason Light. He's been around for a long time. And so that's somebody to keep an eye on. I really don't know how involved or uninvolved he's been on the scouting side. So, and if he has a background in that, and how important is that really? I mean, if Mike Greenberg comes in, maybe you keep around Ethan Watt as the assistant GM and you keep the scouting staff in place. Maybe he wants to get his own guys. Who knows? But again, it's all going to come back to that vision and that alignment from within the organization, from those top three guys, the GM, the head coach, and the EVP. Third guy we're going to talk about here is Ian Cunningham. He's probably been the loudest name when it comes to media buzz about him potentially becoming a GM in the NFL. He has, honestly, a pretty impressive history of where he's been in the NFL. It's kind of just been like, if you're just looking at the resume, right? Baltimore Ravens, personnel assistant from 2008 to 2012, area scout from 2013 to 2016. Philadelphia Eagles, director of college scouting 2017-2018, assistant director of player personnel 2019 to 2020, director of player personnel 2021, Chicago Bears 2022 to present, assistant general manager. So you're looking at all those stops. It's like, wow. Baltimore Ravens, fantastic organization. Philadelphia Eagles, fantastic organization. Chicago Bears, they've still got a ways to go, but I think from a talent perspective, they've done a lot of really good things. And it'd be interesting if it was Ian Cunningham, because he was an offensive lineman in his playing days. Wasn't like a big-time player in the NFL, but he was an offensive lineman. So you'd be talking about Liam Cohen, who has preached about the offensive line, Tony Vaselli, who wants to address the offensive line, Ian Cunningham, a former offensive lineman himself. I think you could see an emphasis on the offensive line. But at the same time, again, while he's assistant GM, not the GM in Chicago, the one thing you can kind of point to, potentially, the interior offensive line, not really the best there in Chicago. But if Ian Cunningham, who has been kind of rumored to be the favorite potentially for this job, does get the job, you could see Tevin Jenkins, who was a draft pick by the Chicago Bears. He's set to be a free agent. He could potentially come over as a guard for the Jaguars if Brandon Sheriff retires or moves on to a different spot. Chad Alexander is the assistant general manager with the Los Angeles Chargers. I love his resume as well, and I've actually done a lot more research into him because he's somebody I was looking at and kind of really I would be excited if it was Chad Alexander, because look, spent like 20 years with the Baltimore Ravens, moving up in the scouting ranks, right? And then he went over with the New York Jets, and they missed on Zach Wilson. They obviously missed on Zach Wilson, right? But they've done a lot of good things in the draft outside of that. When he was there under Joe Douglas, and then goes over to Los Angeles Chargers under Joel Ortiz, who finally got his opportunity to be a general manager. He had been with the Ravens for a long time as well. He got his opportunity to be the GM there in LA with the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh, and they knocked this draft out of the park. They did a great job. Free agent signings is what, like, they just, I thought that they did a really good job managing this offseason, putting the past in the past, kicking things into high gear. And one thing that's always stuck out to me about Chad Alexander and some of the research I've done with him, he consistently talks about having a culture of genuine transparency and alignment. I mean, if that doesn't perfectly align with what Tony Baselli and Liam Cohen and Shad Khan and everyone has been talking about this offseason, I don't know what does. And the track record speaks for itself with the teams, the organizations he's been with. So he's really impressive to me as well. And then the final name here is Trey Brown from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's had some really good stops as well. New England Patriots, scouting assistant 2010, area scout 2011 and 2012 for the New England Patriots. They were in high gear during those years. They were doing a really good job in the draft. I mean, obviously he was not like the final decision maker or anything like that, but somebody who was around a great culture there when it comes to acquiring talent. And then from the Patriots straight to the Eagles, 2013 to 2018 was with the Eagles, area scout, and then an assistant director of college scouting, then the director of college scouting, moving right on up. Birmingham Iron, he went over to the AAF as the executive vice president of football operations for them. Then he was the director of player personnel for the St. Louis Battlehawks in 2020. Landed in Cincinnati after that, obviously taking some big swings trying to bet on these smaller leagues, but having huge roles within those leagues. And then Cincinnati Bengals 2021, a scout, and then 2022 to present, senior personnel executive for the Bengals. So he's had a lot of good stops as well. And another guy who, you know, probably viewed as an up and coming, and all these guys have one thing in common. They're all a lot younger than somebody like a Trent Baalke or Tom Coughlin was before that. So this is just kind of a brief overview on these guys. I've been a huge fan of Chad Alexander for a while now. Looking at Ian Cunningham, he's probably the hottest name here in terms of just buzz about him. So those are the guys that we're looking at right now, and we will dive more into it. I'm sure we're going to get more and more information about this Jaguars GM search, and hopefully get the GM decided fairly quickly and get the rest of the coaching staff filled out and move forward, right? You've got the draft and free agency coming up. Free agency is a little over a month away. The draft is not too far behind that, about a month and a half after free agency starts. You've got the draft. And so big important decisions are going to be made in the next few months with the Jacksonville Jaguars and their roster. And don't forget, it is players, not plays, when it comes to the Jaguars moving forward. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. Let me know what you think about these GM candidates in the comment section below. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good night.